It was a serene summer evening in Anaheim when Angela Diaz returned home, the garage door descending slowly behind her. As she stepped out of her car, she remained blissfully unaware that someone lurked in the shadows, waiting. In an instant, chaos erupted. There was no warning, no time to react, just the sound of movement and the overwhelming terror that ensued. What initially appeared to be a random attack would soon unravel into one of the most twisted criminal conspiracies the city had ever witnessed, involving fake pregnancies, staged assaults, and a woman imprisoned for a crime she did not commit. Yet the truth was even darker than anyone could have imagined. As the final days of 2015 faded away, Angela Diaz brimmed with optimism. At 30 years old, she felt secure, hopeful, and ready to embark on the next chapter of her life. She had recently connected online with someone new, and this time it felt different. His name was Ian Diaz, a 38-year-old U.S. Marshal. Their conversations quickly transitioned from flirtatious banter to profound discussions, igniting an undeniable spark between them. The two met face-to-face on January 2, 2016, and from that moment, everything accelerated. Within weeks, their connection deepened, leading Angela and Ian to move in together, and soon after, they became engaged. A wedding followed, and the couple appeared blissfully happy, deeply in love, and eager to build a future together. Shortly after their wedding, Angela discovered she was pregnant with twins, a dream come true. Angela held a stable job at a law firm, while Ian's federal position in law enforcement provided a sense of structure and security. They lived in Anaheim, California, and from the outside, their life seemed picture perfect. However, that illusion would shatter just months later. On the evening of June 24, 2016, Angela returned home as she did every night. She parked in the garage and stepped out of her car, but everything changed in an instant. A man she had never seen before emerged from the shadows, rushing toward her without warning. Angela fell to the ground, screaming in terror as she desperately tried to protect herself. Bruised and shaken, with her blouse torn, she narrowly escaped serious injury. Yet what frightened her most was the realization that someone had orchestrated this attack. Immediately, Angela called the police, and even before the investigation began, she had a name in mind. Although she did not recognize her attacker, she believed she knew who had sent him. For weeks, she had been receiving bizarre and disturbing emails from anonymous sources, messages filled with threats, religious overtones, and violent imagery. It all began on May 29th, when she opened an email that read, "I hope you are terrified of tomorrow. I am his princess. You are nothing. Watch your back." Then came a message from a LinkedIn account written in all caps. "Michelle is his true and only love. You mean nothing to him." Michelle Hadley was Ian's ex-girlfriend, and their breakup had been anything but peaceful. Their relationship had been tumultuous, marked by arguments, emotional chaos, and unresolved financial entanglements. They had once purchased a condo together, and after their separation, the question of what to do with the property became a bitter point of contention. As Ian attempted to navigate the legal complications, he began receiving strange emails from Michelle. The tone of these messages shifted from hostile to deeply unsettling. Disturbed by the religious fervor and threatening nature of the emails, Ian forwarded them to local police and colleagues at the sheriff's department. He even sought a restraining order, citing Michelle's emotional instability and previous outbursts, but the court denied his request. As Angela continued to receive threats, both she and Ian became convinced that Michelle was behind it all. Angela filed for her own restraining order, explaining that she had never responded to the harasser, had blocked email accounts, and yet the messages persisted. Each time, the emails originated from new addresses, indicating that whoever was behind this was determined to torment her. On June 1, 2016, Angela was granted a restraining order against Michelle, with notification sent via email informing Michelle that she was legally prohibited from contacting or approaching Angela Diaz. From that moment, law enforcement began to take the case seriously. Just days after the restraining order was issued, police officers arrived at Michelle Hadley's home to serve her in person. With the official papers in hand, they informed her of the legal boundaries now in place. For Angela and Ian, this felt like a turning point. Finally, something concrete had been done. They allowed themselves to breathe, believing the ordeal might be coming to an end. However, that sense of safety was short-lived. About a week later, a knock at the door startled the couple. Standing on their doorstep was a man neither of them recognized. He appeared calm, but his presence carried an unsettling weight. He claimed he was there to meet Angela, having been invited to fulfill her deepest sexual fantasies. Confused and alarmed, Angela and Ian listened in disbelief as the man explained that he had answered an ad on Craigslist. According to him, the post outlined a specific role-play scenario that simulated a violent encounter disguised as fantasy. It was supposed to appear non-consensual, though the ad claimed Angela would secretly welcome it. Horrified, Ian and Angela told the man he must have made a mistake. He apologized and left, but the damage was done. Someone had used Angela's identity online to invite strangers into her home, and it was far from over. Later that evening, in the privacy of their garage, the situation escalated into something far more dangerous. Another man arrived, but this time he did not ring the bell or stop to explain himself. He lunged toward Angela, acting as though he was following specific instructions. She managed to escape, but the attack left her shaken to her core. The ad responsible for the assault was discovered soon after. It had been posted under Angela's name, featuring her photograph and home address. The description instructed interested men to visit her residence and even warned them that she might resist, but they were to proceed anyway. It was a horrifying message that not only violated Angela's privacy, but also put her life and the lives of her unborn children at risk. In the days that followed, more men came forward. Some had responded to similar ads and backed away once they realized the situation was real, while others arrived prepared to follow through with what they believed was a dark fantasy scenario. Ian was incensed. The repeated intrusions, the threat of violence, and the lack of clear action from authorities pushed him to the edge. He publicly voiced his frustration, insisting that Michelle Hadley should have been arrested long ago. Eventually, the police acted. Following the garage incident, investigators obtained a warrant and arrested Michelle. She was taken into custody, and her electronic devices, including her phone, laptop, and iPad, were seized for analysis. Her family posted bail, and Michelle was released. However, shortly after, the harassment resumed. The messages continued, and Angela once again received threats, along with strange men showing up at her door. From the start, Michelle denied any involvement. When first notified about the restraining order, she expressed confusion, telling officers she had never spoken to Angela Diaz in her life. She maintained that she hadn't sent any emails, hadn't posted any ads, and had no knowledge of the threats. She claimed someone must have been impersonating her. In fact, she told detectives she had received strange messages herself, but her pleas fell on deaf ears. Investigators dismissed her claims, convinced they had their suspect. Then another incident occurred. A 17-year-old boy arrived at Angela's residence, believing he was fulfilling an invitation. Angela noticed him before anything could happen, and the memories of the previous attack were still fresh in her mind. She reacted immediately, and police arrived on the scene to intercept the teen. He had answered an online ad similar to the others, and like those before him, had no idea the woman in the photographs had not authored the post. The very next day, on July 14th, Michelle Hadley was arrested again. This time, the legal system treated the case with more urgency. The court classified her as a threat to public safety and set her bail at $1 million. The charges were serious. Not only had Angela been targeted, but she was pregnant with twins, which elevated the gravity of the situation. Michelle's family was stunned. They believed she was innocent, but their financial resources were limited. She faced a choice: post bail again or allocate what little money remained toward her legal defense. She chose to remain in custody and fight the accusations from within. Due to the nature of the case, Michelle was held in a high-security unit under special monitoring. Although she had not physically harmed Angela, authorities believed she was behind the coordinated attacks, making her a perceived danger. The weeks that followed were brutal. Inside jail, Michelle was treated with suspicion and contempt. Other inmates viewed her as a snitch or an informant. She was targeted, harassed, and routinely assigned the worst jobs: scrubbing toilets, cleaning filthy corners, and enduring verbal abuse from both inmates and staff. The harsh environment was a far cry from the structured academic life she had always known. Michelle had grown up in Ontario, California, raised in a conservative household. Her parents owned a small business and instilled traditional values in her. She was not drawn to parties or attention. Instead, she found solace in books and quiet places. Her passion for medieval history led her to earn a degree in the field, dedicating herself to studying the intricacies of the Middle Ages. At 22, she married her high school sweetheart, but the relationship did not last. By the time she turned 26, they had divorced. It was after that, in 2011, that Michelle met Ian Diaz, 6 years her senior. The two connected on a dating website, exchanged a few messages, and eventually met for coffee. Ian was charming and articulate, quickly becoming enamored with Michelle. His friends would later describe her as the ideal partner: brilliant, beautiful, and grounded. Ian told everyone she was the best thing that had ever happened to him. Their relationship progressed rapidly. In late 2014, Ian proposed during a trip to New York, and they began planning a wedding for February 2016. In the meantime, they adopted a dog and started looking for a place to live. Eventually, they settled on a unit in a brand new complex in Anaheim's Southern District. The apartment cost just under $469,000, with Michelle contributing a $14,000 down payment. Together, they applied for a loan to cover the rest. From the outside, their life appeared idyllic, but behind closed doors, cracks were already forming. Ian gradually began to assert control. Initially subtle, his behavior became increasingly concerning. Michelle worked in the marketing department of a large insurance company, but Ian insisted the job was too stressful. He persuaded her to leave, offering to help her secure a position as a project manager at Disneyland, where he had connections. He encouraged Michelle to change her appearance, suggesting more makeup, tighter clothes, and longer nails. He even wanted her to get a belly button piercing. He bought her a new phone, tablet, and laptop under the guise of generosity. But Michelle later suspected he used them to track her. He called constantly, demanded updates on her whereabouts, and interrupted her sleep with demands for attention. When Michelle decided to pursue an MBA, Ian was displeased. He insisted on attending classes with her, and when that wasn't possible, he made it difficult for her to leave, creating arguments and delaying her departures. As time passed, Ian's expectations became more disturbing. He pressured Michelle to engage in sexual acts she found deeply uncomfortable, specifically being with another man while Ian watched. Michelle refused, making it clear she would not tolerate such demands. She warned Ian that if he continued to pressure her, the relationship would not survive. However, Ian dismissed her concerns, claiming she was exaggerating. At work, she received explicit messages from him, photos of his genitals, links to adult videos, completely unsolicited and often while she was in meetings or at her desk. Then came Valentine's Day 2014. Michelle was sick that evening, battling a cold and taking medication. Ian began pressuring her again, insisting she fulfill one of his fantasies. Exhausted and desperate to end the conversation, Michelle reluctantly gave in. What followed left a lasting scar. Ian posted an ad on Craigslist inviting a stranger to their home. He mixed Michelle 3 strong drinks, knowing she was unwell and medicated. As the stranger arrived, Ian set up a hidden camera and retreated to the bathroom, watching from behind a closed door. The next morning, Michelle was devastated. She told Ian she felt used, violated, and ashamed. She begged him to delete the footage, but Ian, unmoved, insisted everything had been consensual. Their relationship spiraled from there. After one heated argument, Ian pulled the car over in the middle of a busy road and forced Michelle to get out because she hadn't, in his words, shown him respect. They tried therapy, but it failed after one session. When Michelle brought up the traumatic Valentine's incident, Ian exploded, driving recklessly around the city and threatening to crash the car and kill them both. Michelle found herself trapped in a relationship that appeared safe from the outside, but was deeply toxic, invasive, and emotionally abusive from within. By August 2015, the pressure, fear, and manipulation had reached a breaking point. She could no longer live under Ian's shadow, so she ran. Ian's response was swift and cruel. He destroyed the belongings she left behind, canceled her car insurance out of spite, and sent threats warning that his friends would soon show up at her work, school, and home. Still, she fought to reclaim some sense of normalcy. She found new employment, re-enrolled in school, and began piecing her life back together. The apartment they had purchased together remained a shared liability, and they were both on the mortgage, requiring a resolution. Finally, in November 2015, Michelle and Ian reached an agreement. Ian would pay her $3,000 and assume full responsibility for the mortgage by June 5, 2016. If he failed to meet the terms, the property would be sold and the proceeds divided. Yet no one from the Anaheim Police Department knew about the settlement, not the detectives, not the prosecutors, not even the officers leading the harassment investigation. They didn't ask. Michelle remained in jail for over 2.5 months. Her family, desperate for answers, began examining the evidence themselves. They found inconsistencies in the timeline. Some emails allegedly sent by Michelle had been sent while she was either in class or hospitalized. There were timestamps that simply did not align with her whereabouts. Then came an unexpected turn. Angela Diaz, the man whose testimony had helped build the case against Michelle, walked into the police station with a stunning revelation. He now believed Michelle was innocent and that his current wife, Angela Diaz, had orchestrated the entire scheme. Ian admitted to police that one of the threatening emails attributed to Michelle had been sent from an account he himself had created. He claimed he had not sent the message and now suspected Angela had used the account without his knowledge. That wasn't all. Ian confessed that Angela had lied to him about being pregnant. The ultrasound images had been purchased on Etsy, customizable and fake. Her deception didn't stop there. Angela had claimed to be a licensed attorney, a graduate of law school, but she was neither. There were other stories too. Angela's previous partner, Jason, a police officer, had believed he was in a relationship with a woman battling cancer. Angela had told him she was undergoing chemotherapy for cervical cancer, moving in with Jason and his son, shaving her head, and sending photos from supposed hospital visits. She drank wine, maintained her weight, and showed none of the usual symptoms associated with chemotherapy. Eventually, Jason grew suspicious. A friend followed her on a day she claimed to have a doctor's appointment, but Angela never left the house. Jason reverse-searched one of the photos she had sent and discovered it had been taken from the internet. When confronted, Angela refused to provide any medical documentation or show a port catheter, the kind most oncology patients use during treatment. The truth unraveled. There was no cancer, and Jason ended the relationship. Back in Anaheim, a search warrant was executed. Angela's phone and laptop were seized, and what police found was damning. On January 6, 2017, Angela Diaz was charged with kidnapping, false imprisonment, forgery, perjury, theft, and filing false police reports. The case against Michelle collapsed. Angela had used a VPN to send threatening emails and mask their origin, impersonating Michelle dozens of times. By the time police began checking details, it was too late. The so-called garage attack had never happened. Home surveillance cameras showed no intruder that night. Angela had likely injured herself and fabricated the story, but police had never checked the footage. Despite smiling and maintaining her innocence during the investigation, Angela ultimately took a plea deal, pleading guilty and receiving 5 years in prison. It was a remarkably light sentence considering Michelle had nearly faced life behind bars. Angela is now free and divorced from Ian. Only after her conviction was Michelle fully exonerated, but even that moment was tarnished. The district attorney's office made no immediate public statement. Michelle had to issue an ultimatum: tell the truth or be exposed. A press conference was finally held, where officials acknowledged the miscarriage of justice, praised investigators for their work, and cast Michelle as the victim of a calculated hoax. However, Michelle had been cooperative from the start. She had warned police she was being impersonated, calling nearly every day and pleading with investigators to trace the IP addresses, but they ignored her. Michelle flagged the Craigslist ads as fraudulent and begged for their removal, but the system failed her repeatedly. Even after Angela's confession, Michelle remained convinced that Ian had been involved from the beginning, and her arrest coincided with the same week Ian failed to meet the court's conditions for taking over the apartment mortgage. Eventually, investigators traced many of the emails and Craigslist posts back to IP addresses registered at the Diaz home. Not only had Angela used the home network, but so had Ian. He had sent some of the messages using his work phone, personal phone, and laptop. Realizing the plan wouldn't work, he attempted to shift the blame to Angela, changing his number, deleting email accounts, and making himself the whistleblower. It wasn't enough. Ian Diaz was charged with cyberstalking, conspiracy, perjury, and obstruction of justice. In 2023, he was sentenced to 10 years and 1 month in federal prison. In 2018, Michelle Hadley filed a federal lawsuit against Ian, Angela, the city of Anaheim, and the Anaheim Police Department, alleging false imprisonment and civil rights violations. That lawsuit was quietly settled in 2021, with the terms never made public. Today, she has rebuilt her life, completed her MBA, found work in marketing, and started her own business. She left California behind and moved to New York, where she recently welcomed her first child, a daughter. Michelle was the victim of a horrific scheme. Don't miss out. Subscribe now for more thrilling investigations.